You buy a security camera for peace of mind. You hope it just records package deliveries and you fumbling for your keys. But sometimes they capture the moments you were never, ever meant to see. These 4 stories come from people who wish they had never checked the footage from right outside their front door. Story 1, The Stairwell Man. When I first moved into the Park West Place apartments in Houston, it felt like a huge step up. It wasn't luxury, not by a long shot, but it was clean. The rent was decent, and it was all mine. I had a 3rd-floor unit with a little balcony that overlooked a bunch of oak trees. For the first few months, it was perfect. A quiet place to unwind after work, a sanctuary from the city noise. The building had its quirks, sure. The elevator was painfully slow, and the walls were paper thin. But the neighbors seemed normal. We did the usual nods and half smiles you give strangers you see every day. That sense of peace, though it didn't last, it started to disappear so slowly I almost didn't notice, like the tide washing away the shore. It began with a feeling, you know, that prickle on the back of your neck when you're walking from your car to the building late at night. The stairwell, this concrete echo chamber that always smelled kind of damp, started to feel occupied. At first, I just blew it off. It's an apartment building. People come and go. But this was different. There was a stillness, a presence that just seemed to hang in the air. Then, about 6 months in, I saw him. I was heading out on a Saturday afternoon, and as I rounded the corner to the stairwell, a man was just there, standing on the landing between the 2nd and 3rd floors, not going up, not going down, just standing there, leaning against the wall, staring at nothing. He was gaunt, with these tired eyes that seemed to look right through me. I mumbled a quick "excuse me" and hustled past, my footsteps sounding way too loud in the silence. The whole thing left me feeling uneasy, but I told myself he was probably just visiting someone. A week later, I saw him again. Exact same spot. This time, he had a thin, dirty blanket wrapped around his shoulders. He didn't even look at me, but his presence was like a heavy weight in the air. The short walk to my front door, which used to be mindless, now felt like running a gauntlet. I started taking the slow, creaky elevator just to avoid him. It didn't feel like a public stairwell anymore. It felt like his space. Then things started to escalate. One evening, the fire alarm started blaring, and we all spilled out of our apartments. Totally confused, we found out later there was a small fire in the 3rd floor stairwell. Someone had set a styrofoam box on fire, filling the whole space with thick, black smoke. Management sent out a generic email about fire safety. But I knew who was in that stairwell. I decided I had to complain. I went to the management office and laid it all out. The man basically living in the stairwell, the creepy feeling, the fire. The property manager just listened with this practiced blank look. She took my info and promised they'd look into it. She asked if he was a tenant's guest. I said I had no idea, but he was clearly living there. Her response gave me chills. She said I should call the police if I felt bothered. The message was loud and clear. This was my problem, not theirs. Feeling completely blown off and getting more scared by the day, I took matters into my own hands. I bought a tiny security camera, one that looked like an air freshener, and stuck it in the hallway, pointed at the stairwell door. I needed proof. I had to document what was happening because it felt like I was the only one seeing it. The footage I got over the next few months became this horrifying video diary. At first, It was just clips of him loitering, a ghost in a blanket, sometimes sleeping for hours on the cold steps. Then, his behavior got more erratic. One clip showed him trying to walk downstairs, clearly drunk, stumbling and crashing into the railing. Another night, the camera caught him in a screaming match with some other people. The hallway wasn't just a hallway anymore. It was the stage for his chaotic life. Then came the package thefts, alert after alert. My camera showed him casually walking up to my door and other neighbors' doors, swiping our packages and walking away. My sense of safety was gone. My own home felt violated, even though he'd never stepped inside. His presence was this constant, looming threat just on the other side of my door. The final straw came on a Tuesday night. I was home, trying to watch a movie, when I heard a very distinct knock. It wasn't a delivery. It was slow, deliberate. My blood ran cold. I tiptoed to the peephole, my heart pounding. It was him. His face was just inches from my door, his eyes wide and unfocused. He knocked again, harder. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just stood there, paralyzed, praying he'd leave. After what felt like forever, he shuffled back to the stairwell. As soon as he was gone, I pulled up the camera footage on my phone, seeing his face on my screen, knowing he was right there, trying to get to me, just broke something inside me. I called 911. The next morning, I took everything, months of time-stamped videos of the loitering, the fire, the fights, the package thefts, the knocking, and sent it all to the local news. I had given management every chance to handle it, and they did nothing. I was done being quiet. Within days, a reporter called me. The story aired, complete with the grainy, chilling footage from my little camera. The public attention finally lit a fire under property management. Faced with the news story and undeniable video proof, they were forced to act. I'd like to say I never saw the man again, that they solved the problem. But the truth is, it didn't just stop. Even after the story aired, I'd still see him on the property sometimes. The silence he left in the stairwell wasn't peaceful. For the rest of my lease, every creak in the hallway, every unexpected knock, sent a jolt of pure fear through me. My camera, the thing I bought for peace of mind, had only confirmed my worst fears, that the barrier between safe and chaos is just one unlocked door, and as sometimes no one will help you until you can show them the horror with their own eyes. It's one thing when a threat builds up so slowly it becomes part of your daily life. But what happens when the camera doesn't capture a slow burn nightmare? What happens when it captures a sudden, violent act that shatters someone's world in a single afternoon? This next story is about a camera that saw way too much. Story 2, The Robe and the Crowbar. My name is Sarah, and for a couple of years, I lived in this big, sprawling apartment complex in North Dallas called the North Star Apartments. It was a typical starter apartment kind of place, functional and mostly anonymous. My unit was on the second floor of an open-air breezeway. I didn't really know my neighbors, but I was friendly with the guy directly across the hall, Aaron. He was a quiet young guy. It was his first apartment, and we'd wave or make small talk by the mailboxes. Given the vibe of the complex, I'd bought a pretty good doorbell camera. It wasn't just for porch pirates, it was for peace of mind. The camera's wide-angle lens didn't just see my doorstep, it got a perfect view of Aaron's front door and even a bit of his patio down the way. Mostly, it just recorded boring stuff, food deliveries, me dropping my keys, a stray cat. I never in a million years thought it would become the only witness to my neighbor's life getting completely dismantled. It happened on a Sunday. Aaron had been out of town for about a week for work. I was out running errands all day, and when I got home, I didn't notice anything was wrong. The hallway was quiet, like always. It wasn't until I was scrolling through my motion alerts that night that I saw it. The alert was from that afternoon. The clip started, and I saw a man I'd never seen before walk right down the hallway like he owned the place. He was wearing a distinctive red robe and nothing else. He walked up to Aaron's door, seemed to listen for a second, then walked out of frame toward the patio. A few minutes later, the camera caught him again. This time, he was coming out of Aaron's apartment, dragging a huge plastic bin filled with stuff. My heart started hammering. I looked at the timestamp. This had happened hours ago. I played the clip again and again. This guy was just calmly carrying Aaron's life away in a plastic tub. He was so casual, so relaxed. A wave of guilt and fear washed over me. My camera saw it, but I didn't. What if I'd been home? Would I have heard something? Could I have stopped it? I thought about calling the police, but then I started second-guessing myself. What if I was wrong? The red robe was weird, but maybe it was Aaron's friend. Asked to grab something for him, I decided to wait. I shot Aaron a text, asking if he was expecting anyone, but got no reply. The next day, another alert. My blood ran cold when I opened the live feed. It was him. The man from the day before was back, but this time, he wasn't wearing the red robe. In a sickening twist, he was wearing Aaron's own clothes, and he'd brought a friend. I just watched, totally paralyzed, as the two of them made trip after trip, back and forth from Aaron's apartment. They were so methodical. They wheeled out more bins. They carried out his electronics. They were completely ransacking his apartment in broad daylight. This was no friend. This was a full-blown burglary. This time, I didn't hesitate. I called 911 and told the dispatcher exactly what I was watching on my camera. The cops showed up, but by then, the two men were gone. They had just vanished, leaving behind a trashed apartment. When Aaron got home a day later, the scene was devastating. He opened his door to find his home completely torn apart. His TV, his PlayStation, his camera, almost everything he owned was gone. He later told a reporter, "I feel like I wanted to throw up. The life I put together was torn apart. My camera footage was the only reason he knew exactly what happened. It showed the world the face of the man who did this." But the story got even darker. As I talked to other neighbors, I learned this wasn't the first time. Another unit had been burglarized a few months earlier. In that case, the burglar used a crowbar to bust the door open and was bold enough to drag a heavy safe across the hallway. My camera had caught that too. And in that robbery, the thief had spotted and cut the victim's own security cameras, but they never saw mine, sitting silently across the hall. Despite the crystal clear footage I provided, no arrests were made right away. A thick fog of vulnerability settled over our part of the building. Aaron, understandably, didn't feel safe anymore and made plans to move out. He hadn't bought renter's insurance. "I didn't really realize how important it was," he said. So, lesson learned. My camera, a simple device I bought for myself, ended up documenting the complete destruction of my neighbor's first home. It captured the surreal image of a man in a red robe becoming a calculated thief and showed just how easily a home can be dismantled while the world just goes on. The footage didn't stop the crime, but it made sure that what happened to Aaron didn't happen in silence. It's terrifying to think a neighbor's camera might be the only witness to a crime. But what happens when cameras are watching, but no one is there to react in time? In our third story, a silent, unseen guardian was the only thing standing between two intruders and an entire apartment building full of sleeping residents. Story 3, The Watchers. I live in a big, modern apartment community, one of those places with multiple buildings, a clubhouse, and what they call controlled access. That was a huge selling point for me. The complex also has a ton of security cameras monitored by a service called eCam. There are little signs everywhere saying the place is under 24/7 surveillance. You see the signs, you see the little dark bubbles in the corners of hallways, and you just forget they're there. I never thought I'd have a reason to be so incredibly grateful for those silent, forgotten eyes. My story isn't about something I saw. It's about something that happened while I was fast asleep in my bed, totally oblivious to the danger unfolding just a few floors below me. It happened in the dead of night, when the world is at its darkest and most quiet. According to the monitoring company, their remote agents, people hundreds of miles away, watching the live feeds from my building, spotted something. On the camera, covering a main entrance, 2 men appeared. They did not look like residents. They were tense, furtive, and lingered by the locked glass doors. This entrance has a key fob system. It's supposed to be secure, but for these two, the lock wasn't a barrier, it was a puzzle. As a remote agent watched, the men started forcefully prying at the door. One man was a lookout, while the other threw his whole body into it, trying to jimmy the lock. Thinking about this happening while I was asleep just yards away still makes my skin crawl. That's the sound you pray you never hear. They were banking on the fact that no one would be awake to see them. But they were wrong. Someone was seeing it. A trained security operator, watching it all happen in real time. The second the men started forcing the door, the operator was already moving. They didn't just sound some loud alarm on site that would scatter the intruders. They immediately contacted the local police. And this is where things went from just recording a crime to actually stopping one. The operator gave the dispatcher live, verified info. There are 2 individuals actively forcing entry at the south entrance of the apartment community at this address. We are watching them on a live feed. They are making entry now. That kind of real-time intelligence is gold for police. It's the difference between responding to a maybe false alarm and responding to a confirmed crime in progress. The footage showed the door finally giving way. The 2 figures slipped inside. They must have thought they were home free, able to roam the hallways, test doors, and look for their shot. They moved with the confidence of predators who think they're invisible. But they weren't. Their every step was being tracked. The remote agent followed them through the building, switching from camera to camera, silently relaying their exact position to the officers who were on their way. Because of that operator's quick and precise work, police arrived incredibly fast. They entered the building, knowing exactly where to go. There was no chase, no big confrontation. The suspects were caught completely off guard and apprehended before they could steal anything, damage anything, or terrify anyone. The entire threat was neutralized before it ever really started. I, and everyone else, found out in an email from management the next morning. It was brief, stating that an attempted forced entry was intercepted by their security service and police, resulting in 2 arrests. Reading that was surreal. Life felt completely normal. There was no broken door, no police tape, and yet a serious threat had been right here in our safe space. It made me see those little black cameras in a whole new light. They weren't just passively recording events for later. They were active sentinels, connected to human eyes that turned surveillance into immediate intervention. I often wonder what would have happened if they were just recording to a hard drive in some locked office. Those men would have had free rein for hours. Instead, because someone was watching, the story had a very different ending. It's a story about a crime that was stopped before it ever truly began. A live monitoring service can stop a crime in progress, but what happens when the criminals are smart enough to go after the cameras first? Tampering with a camera is a deliberate act, designed to create a blind spot where a threat can hide. In our final story, a compromised camera didn't lead to a crime, but to a deeply unsettling discovery. Story 4: The Upside Down Man. I work as a property manager for a mid-sized apartment building. It's a decent place, mostly young professionals. Part of my job is overseeing our security, which includes cameras in the lobby, mailroom, and all the stairwells. We contract with a remote patrol service that does virtual tours of the property at night, just to make sure everything looks right. The call came in around noon from our monitoring service, Virtue Guard. An agent doing a routine virtual patrol had noticed something weird. "The camera in your east stairwell is upside down," he said, his voice totally calm. My first thought was a glitch, or maybe the mount came loose. A simple maintenance fix. But the agent kept going. "We've reviewed the recorded footage," he said. "It wasn't a glitch. Someone intentionally turned it." A chill went down my spine. Tampering with a security camera is a huge red flag. It's a conscious effort to blind us. The agent sent me the footage, and what I saw took this from a simple maintenance call to a full-blown security incident. The timestamp was from the middle of the night. The clip starts with a clear, stable shot of the stairwell. Then, a figure comes up the stairs. An unknown man, not a tenant, walks slowly up to the landing. He pauses right in front of the camera, his face filling the screen. He looks around, then reaches up. His hand covers the lens, and when he pulls it away, the world is inverted. The floor is the ceiling. He had physically grabbed the camera and twisted it upside down. Watching how deliberate he was about it was deeply unsettling. This wasn't random vandalism. This was a calculated move. Why? What was he planning to do in the one spot he now thought was invisible? The agent on the phone pointed me to another clip. Before he tampered with that camera, he was observed entering through the front door. He explained. So, he had likely tailgated a resident to get inside in the first place. With a growing sense of dread, I told the agent I was heading to the east stairwell to check it out. I asked my maintenance supervisor to meet me there. As we got to the heavy fire door, we could hear something, a low, rhythmic sound. It was snoring. I pushed the door open, my heart pounding, and there he was, sprawled out on the landing, right under the upside-down camera, was the man from the video. He was fast asleep, using a jacket as a pillow. The stairwell, a primary fire exit, had become his personal bedroom. The relief I felt that he was just sleeping was immediately wiped out by anger and this deep sense of unease. He had breached our security, deliberately blinded our surveillance, and made a home for himself. What if he hadn't been sleeping? What if he'd been waiting for someone? The vulnerability of our residents in that moment was crystal clear. Following protocol, we backed away quietly, and I called 911 to report a trespasser. The police showed up within minutes, woke the man up, and after confirming he had no right to be there, escorted him off the property. Later that day, our security techs came and secured the camera more firmly. The whole thing taught us a couple of harsh lessons. First, we needed a better system to alert us if a camera was tampered with or went offline. A dead camera is a blind spot, and that's where criminals thrive. We were just lucky the virtual patrol caught it. Second, it proved why you need overlapping cameras. He blinded the stairwell camera, but the lobby camera still caught him coming in. The most disturbing part was the psychology of it. This man knew enough to identify a security camera and neutralize it. He sought out a blind spot to hide. In this case, it was just asleep, but that same knowledge and intent could easily have been used for something much, much worse. It was a violation of our system, a test, and it proved that even when you think you're hidden, a good security plan has other ways of seeing you. The unblinking lens of a hallway camera sees everything. It sees the boring, the bizarre, and sometimes the truly terrifying. These stories show us that the threat isn't always a monster in the shadows. Sometimes it's someone you see every day, and sometimes it's the system you thought was keeping you safe. They're a stark reminder that the line between a normal day and a nightmare can be erased in a second, and often the only witness is the one you installed for peace of mind. Thanks for watching. If you have a true, unsettling story of your own, especially one caught on camera, send it to the email in the description below. Your story could be in a future video. For more true horror, don't forget to subscribe, stay safe, and check your footage.